Rock Lee is a character that has continued to have a shaky reputation for many years, both when Naruto was still being published and now when the manga has already long been concluded. From my experience, these are the two loudest camps. You either love him to death and believe him to be one of the best characters in the series, or he's nothing more than a wasted character who's an utter failure. And while for me personally, there's many other characters I have over Rock Lee, whenever there's any discourse, I tend to see others not talking about what truly made his character so special to begin with. No, he wasn't supposed to be the true main character of the series, and no, he wasn't supposed to show how hard work beats talent. These are statements that I've watched slowly spiral out of control throughout my many years of being a Naruto fan, and it honestly sucks, because not only does it start to create misconceptions, but it makes people forget what made characters like Rock Lee so incredibly impactful and meaningful for the role he played. Not everyone is supposed to go above and beyond right to the very end like Naruto and Sasuke, as some characters have different shoes to fill for themselves. This includes not only them being learning experiences for other characters, but also going on their own individual journeys to find what the true purpose is that they're not even fully aware of themselves. And with that being said, let's dive into the true purpose of Rock Lee. Rock Lee's introduction into the world of Naruto is set up perfectly by Kishimoto, creating the exact first impression he wants for this character, matching how Rock Lee is always viewed in the public eye within the story. He's got a pretty goofy looking appearance, which makes not only us not take him too seriously, but as well as the characters. And how Kishimoto slowly starts to change this into a situation where you should never judge a book by its cover is by Rock Lee challenging Sasuke. Not only does this show the confidence his character is bringing to the table by wanting to fight before the exam has even begun, but by going straight for Sasuke and not any of the other team members displays how fixated he is on only fighting the strong. At this point in the story, we've all seen how much Sasuke has been built up to be a genius in the act of combat, and that's exactly why Rock Lee is obsessed with him to prove a point to not only everyone around him, but most importantly, himself. The boy who's been said to have the most potential, the last member of the legendary Uchiha clan, the most popular rookie out there. This was the perfect wall for Rock Lee to break. But little did Lee know that Naruto also shared similar feelings of not getting the recognition he felt he deserved because of these talented geniuses who were always stealing the spotlight from him. And due to his stubborn arrogance, he finds Lee to be a joke. Not just because of his appearance, but as a result of Lee believing in his confidence that he could simply win a fight against Sasuke out of the blue. It all felt rather insulting to Naruto, leading to him charging towards Lee and getting smacked down in a matter of seconds. Sasuke before all of this was still thinking of Lee as someone inferior to him, one who we can easily look down on by saying words such as, "Do you really want to learn what it means to be an Uchiha?" But after watching his small skirmish with Naruto, he can tell that there is indeed something unique about him, but not enough to bring out his Sharingan straight away. Again, we see a familiar lack of respect towards Lee, which can be seen through Sasuke also saying the same line as Naruto about being able to finish the fight in 5 minutes, and so we all know the end result of that. This is when Sasuke gives in to relying on his Sharingan to end the fight, and we can see this confidence through the smile on his face the moment he's activated it. He feels like things will be easy from here and there'll be no issues for him, which is the exact mindset Rock Lee was waiting for. To see someone so confident in their genetics, where that's all they'll need to win their battles. Rock Lee is that rude awakening, delivering a fast, powerful strike to the face that breaks that expectation of Sasuke being untouchable. This entire page dedicated to this single kick really makes this moment all the more powerful. The environment has been completely removed, which helps us focus more on these two characters and how expectations have been shattered right before our very eyes. It emphasizes how eye-opening of a moment this is, especially when the previous page was boasting about the tables being turned on Lee thanks to Sasuke's Sharingan. But when you turn the page, you're met with such a clear focus shot of the harsh reality Sasuke has literally ran straight into. I also love how Lee's kick is aimed straight for Sasuke's face, almost like he was, in a way, sending a physical message to him about how much he relied on those precious eyes of his. This was the hard-hitting reality for Sasuke, learning what happens to those who simply rely on genetics to carry them to the top. As Lee states, there are two kinds of strength, the kind you're born with and the kind you only get from back-breaking work. Due to Sasuke's lack of finding the right balance between his ocular vision and taijutsu, he was completely out of his element, that carelessness creating an important lesson for him that he carries throughout the rest of the Chunin exams. But going back to Lee, after the fight we see more of his his character intentions get revealed, about how he's pretty much testing himself to see where the fruits of his training will get him when facing the naturally gifted. And this is something very important to remember for later when it comes to Lee finding his rightful place in a system that's always weighed negatively against him. This is something Naruto not only relates to, but as well as something he himself acknowledges, leading to a really neat conversation between him and Sasuke where it's clear he fully understood the situation, all while Sasuke hasn't because of how unbelievable it all is to him, even though by all means the boy with the gifted eyes should have seen this coming first, which is pretty ironic. And for that, Naruto mocks his arrogance. This is the reality they're facing. Naruto can clearly see the amount of hard work it must have taken Lee to get to this point, and if they both choose to ignore this, they simply won't stand a chance and will continue to get outdone. Naruto's comment about Lee getting extra special training also provides us with a hint of how Lee isn't a typical shinobi, but in fact there's something a lot more unique about him that remains to be told. What a way to start off the Chunin exams, as Kishimoto doesn't show off a character that has any special ninjutsu, but just raw body strength alone, really setting the stage for the diverse range of characters we can only anticipate, as Rock Lee had without a doubt left his mark, and his recognition only continues to grow more from here. Skipping forward to the heart of the Chunin exams, the story grows a lot more tense and all around darker, which makes Rock Lee's return to the spotlight all the more of a promising moment for the reader. Not only did we see him humiliate the two main characters in a matter of seconds to gain an understanding of his strength, but we're also aware of how much of a kind-hearted guy he is, which gives us that breath of fresh air from the many characters who have become cocky and arrogant over the power they possess. Lee immediately becomes that light for the reader where you just can't help but get a smile on your face seeing him jump in to protect Sakura when he didn't need to at all, considering she's not a part of his team. Rock Lee ventures down the path he believes is correct to show his worth of being a shinobi. However, while this attitude is great, eventually there will be walls that will stop you dead in your tracks when you least expect it, especially when you ignore your limits and push them away into a corner to act like they don't exist. And because of this, it can create issues like doubt and concern that can make you actually fall off the pathway you were once so confident standing on, now unable to find that right footing back up because you lost track of what makes you and your goal so special to begin with. This will make a lot more sense in the future, but it's still very important to bring up now because this part in the story is the first set of breadcrumbs that will build up over time more into the emotional vulnerable state of Rock Lee. This is accepting defeat. Rock Lee has gained a lot of hype within the fandom, and I can see why. His character feels very fresh to the series and he's someone you can't help but just root for. However, all of that excitement can sometimes get the better of us, especially when it comes to getting your expectations in check, and this is exactly what Kishimoto does. A lot of people seem to forget that Lee actually loses his first proper fight we see him take part in, because it's hard to count his squabble with Sasuke and Naruto a true battle, and that's actually pretty bold of Kishimoto to do. Normally once an interesting character is introduced, we see them continue to rise with only a few minor inconveniences getting in their way, to show that they can be taken down a peg or two at some point in the story. Both Gaara and Neji are the perfect examples you're looking for here, but Rock Lee is unique, and that's a key word that needs to be expressed: unique. The introduction of Rock Lee is all about how unique of a character he is when compared against the rest, and through this fight we get to see that Kishimoto originally signified this in more ways than just one. Lee gets an absolute beating from the Sound Ninja. In fact, the attack we see Lee deliver, this being the primary Lotus, was the same move we were all on the edge of our seats waiting for him to deliver to Sasuke before getting interrupted, and yet even that ends in failure. It wasn't successful at all, and neither was Lee. Yet the tables quickly turn upon Sasuke's curse mark awakening, where he now takes control over the situation, all while Rock Lee was simply outdone. Kishimoto is slowly painting a picture here that will start to become more clear throughout the rest of the Chunin exams, but it should still be made understandable that Lee's effort here wasn't for nothing. He dived headfirst into a situation that he didn't need to be a part of, because that's the kind of shinobi he wants to be, where no matter the odds, he wants to put his life on the line to help protect those he cares about. And because of this, he became one of the main reasons why Sakura stepped up and gained newfound resolve. It's something she herself even says, further proving how Lee really is slowly but surely becoming a beacon of inspiration for everyone. Even without taking a single victory in battle, he's successfully managing to capture the hearts of everyone around him to do better and simply improve oneself. Yet this was only scratching the surface of what we knew up to this point when it came to his character, as there was a much grander stage waiting for him to leave his mark as a true shinobi. The Chunin exams is filled with many standout moments, yet it's impossible to ignore the colossal impact Rock Lee vs Gaara not only had on the series, but as well as anime and manga in general. To this very day, it still remains to be one of the most iconic fights in the medium that people just can't stop talking about. Just how many times have you seen a post on Instagram or Twitter show up about Rock Lee removing his weights? Whether you're a fan of Naruto or not, this is a fight you've at least heard of, and for very good reason. While there can be the feeling that the praise is often fairly over excessive, since there's dozens upon dozens of other spectacular fights from the series that could also be discussed, this battle really captured the hearts of many, and who's to thank for this? None other than Rock Lee. While Gaara is also a 10 out of 10 contender in this battle, generally all of the praise goes to the show of feats that Lee pulls out for us. And I'm not saying this in a way to disrespect Gaara, but Kishimoto made sure that Rock Lee is the one who will be the main star of the battle, even if he does end up losing. This was the perfect stage for Lee to show what he was all about. Not only did he have an audience, but he was facing the untouchable, blood-hungry Sand Village Shinobi who had already made a deadly first impression. It's a situation where you're excited to see Lee in action, but also just as worried. This is one of the main threats Kishimoto has been slowly building up for this arc after all. The boy with a cold demeanor who ends lives without any hesitation. It's a troubling predicament to be in, yet for Lee, this doesn't matter. Even if he did know who Gaara really was, it wouldn't stop him from partaking in this fight. Having the confidence to stand on your own 2 feet with a firm mindset of unwavering resolve to show your strength and how far you've come. And what way to put this all into a better perspective by revealing the truth of what makes Lee so special to begin with. Ninjutsu and genjutsu isn't an option, leaving only one pathway to take if he wishes to grow into a splendid ninja. This was the art of taijutsu. Lee was given an unlucky set of cards in life that only created more pressure. Being a ninja meant everything to him, and as he was growing up, it felt like it was slowly being stripped away without him having any say in the matter. And this is something you really sympathize for, because Lee isn't going down this pathway in hope of becoming Hokage or being the strongest ninja ever. He simply wants to prove that even if a person who can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu can still become a splendid ninja. It's his only goal, as he says, yet what is a splendid ninja exactly? Leads into him believing that winning fights against the naturally gifted like Neji was what he needed to show his worth. But this was something he can never do, resulting in these emotions piling up more and more to where doubt and concern begins to creep in. This is where we see his biggest insecurities pour out from him due to his firm belief only being victorious is what makes a splendid ninja. Because of his constant failures, Lee allows his biggest fear to get the better of him. This is the moment where Rock Lee broke down and gave up. I've wondered if it was possible for hard work alone to be rewarded, so I've kept challenging Neji, but the results have always been the same. I'm no match for him, and even now, on missions, my legs still tremble in fear. Fear that no matter how hard I work, I'll never get stronger. It scares me so much I can't stand it. I don't know what to do. This piece of dialogue is what Lee has been fighting against since the moment he chose the path of the Shinobi, a fate that he's continued to reject, wishing for it not to be set in stone. But at this moment, he gave in to the cruel reality the world had set for him. However, thankfully, Lee wasn't alone, as there was actually someone else who had already ventured down this brutal road, and that's my Guy. Which is why the response Guy gives to Lee is perfect, because for Guy, this is surely something he's told himself many times, and now it's a lesson he must pass on to a troubled child who happens to remind him of his younger self. All your hard work will prove worthless unless you believe in yourself. Guy's words were the spark that relit the flame within Rock Lee that was on the verge of dwindling out completely. His goal was no longer seen as something worthless, and instead of hearing the same response from others to give up, he was now at last being told to push on and grow stronger, so another instance of this won't ever happen again. Guy can clearly see the potential Lee has to become a splendid ninja, a title that many others are not capable of attaining being because they lack that spirit to never give up no matter what. And because Lee is one of the small few exceptions who has continued to preserve this spirit, all while disregarding the heavy unfavorable odds, this is exactly what makes Rock Lee a genius of hard work. Glancing back into the past of Lee really puts into perspective how far the boy who was called a failure has come, which is precisely why Kishimoto reveals to us everything Lee has got to give in this fight, delivering spectacle after spectacle as he doesn't want to allow a single moment to slip by where you're not impressed with his performance. Lee is here to shock and amaze you, demonstrating how all of that hard work and resolve has paid off by hooking us more than any of the fights that had ninjutsu or genjutsu at play. This is where we see the genius of hard work run wild. While the beginning of the fight starts off rough for Lee, he manages to always bounce back right out of the corner he was pushed into. And that's something crucial to take note of, as this plays heavily into Lee's ninja way of not giving up no matter what. As each time we see him get back up, it's always more impressive than the last, not just because of how much tougher the situation is continuously getting for him due to the state of his body, but most importantly because of his undying willpower that never rests to prove that he is indeed the splendid ninja. The Lee wasn't off to a terrific start. Gaara wasn't moving a muscle while Lee ended up on the defense, having no way to lay even a finger on the boy who has never been injured in his entire life. Rock Lee was already on the end of his rope, but he had still yet to show what makes him truly a genius of hard work. This is the moment where we finally get the iconic weight drop. The boy who was already in a handicapped situation due to his lack of ninja abilities had placed another handicap on top of that, all for the purpose of pushing his potential because he knew he had to work harder than anyone else to get to the position he wanted to be in. And due to his resolve, Lee is rewarded by being the first person to ever hit Gaara. Not the genius Hyuga, not the Uchiha Avenger, not the Fox Spirit Boy. It was Rock Lee. It's an incredible moment where the untouchable is no longer a title that can be held. This can be seen as a symbolic way of showcasing Lee taking one of his first big steps to breaking down the confident demeanor of those who are born gifted. That shield which has always kept those individuals safe was no longer something they could rely on. The ultimate defense they trusted was starting to slowly crumble away. However, Gaara was not like any other gifted ninja. His sand armor always rebuilding itself was a reminder to Lee that he had more to prove to make a permanent mark on his belief of hard work paying off. Rock Lee had to step up again to show his worth. Yet the further Lee continues to push himself, the more his body begins to fail him, as it was never as strong as his willpower, revealing to us that his limitations are still always present. Lee is continuing to fight through not just the physical pain, but the emotional suffering of falling back to that nightmare where those limits controlled every aspect of his life. And if this series has taught us anything, it's that one should never suffer alone, making Might Guy's appearance into Lee's life all the more important. Just one single look towards his teacher was enough to inform him of how proud Guy was, even with Lee currently backed against the wall. Guy knows how hard his student is working, and for that he couldn't be more happier to see him give it his all, especially when knowing how much stronger an individual gets when standing back up, refusing to fall to the ground. It's been reinstated numerous times how Lee is unlike any other in terms of this aspect, someone who's willing to die for what they want to attain, making the 8 inner gates the perfect ability for one with such a dangerous mindset. It's so perfect for Lee in fact that even Kakashi further proves this by saying it should be impossible through hard work alone, therefore making Lee a genius of hard work, obtaining something that aligns perfectly with his goal to become a splendid ninja like no other. The 8 inner gates is an incredible display of attributes to show off for the first time with Rock Lee, as Kishimoto really does go all out with how chaotic he makes the battlefield get. The realization setting in of how impressive it truly is that a boy who had no ninjutsu or genjutsu was pulling off the most extravagant sight we've ever seen from the entire exam. And that's just so perfect with how much of a spectacle it becomes, because it's something that even the characters can't help but be locked in a constant state of shock and amazement. Kishimoto making sure to show numerous reaction panels more than any fight we've seen, as this is honestly proof enough that Lee had already achieved his goal of proving to everyone that through hard work alone you truly can become a splendid shinobi unlike any other. Yet due to how treacherous this journey was towards his dream, Lee didn't know when that campaign would end because, well, how could he when all he's known is defeat against the hands from those who are gifted? And unfortunately, this situation was no different. While Kishimoto does show how almighty the gates are, he makes sure to not display lengthy moments of Lee having the upper hand without showing the unfortunate catch to it all. Lee's body is being destroyed, his muscles are tearing and his bones are breaking. We've known this from the start, but this statement I'm going to say is all the more important for these next few moments. Lee's body and, well, life was the thing he was willing to put on the line to reach his goal, being the only way to grab hold of what always seemed so unattainable from the beginning. As said earlier, Kishimoto is making sure to go back and forth, showing the side effects such a technique is having on his body. Hell, before Lee has even moved to attack Gaara, we see his nose start to bleed immediately. It's such a conflicting situation because, yes, on one hand it's incredibly exciting seeing the potential Lee has as he puts on a one-of-a-kind show for everyone, but at the same time it's downright worrying because we know his body was never built for the Shinobi life since the day he was born. And unfortunately for Lee, that reality was about to hit home more than ever before. His final trump card wasn't enough to finish the fight, leaving Gaara to be the one to seal the outcome by breaking his limbs, the parts of his body that he had to rely and work on the most to get him to where he is today. It all seemed like it was coming to an end, including Lee's own life, before Might Guy puts a stop to Gaara's final attack. It was all over. Lee was clearly going to lose at this point anyway, and Guy interfering only added on by being an obstruction to the match. It was a long hard fought battle where Lee gave it his all, and for that it's something we can all be proud of. Except for one person, Rock Lee himself. This moment is so astonishingly strong because it continues to reinstate the idea that Lee is someone who will never stay down as long as his willpower hasn't been crushed. And seeing such a sight for Might Guy is heartbreaking for him. The fact that his own student has had to push himself this far simply because he felt like he hadn't become a true shinobi, having to go through such a grueling training process to learn techniques that only destroys one's body, which all accumulates to this very moment. Rock Lee has already become a splendid ninja. This is the single most important panel and line that is crucial to fully understanding the type of character Rock Lee has been represented as. And what's so disappointing is that a lot of people often ignore this crucial moment just to say, well, it doesn't matter, Lee still lost and that's what makes him a loser who could never prove hard work pays off. And my response to this is that you've clearly fallen into the same misguided trapped mindset as Rock Lee himself. Let's get personal for a few moments here. I'm someone who actually took a lot of inspiration from Lee as a kid. I was unhappy and my weight was literally a big reason for that. And the teasing I would get from school kids for being fat made me want to run away from that part of me I hated oh so much. So seeing such a character push on no matter how tough and demoralizing the situation was, sparked a boost in confidence within me to start working out, which helped me lose all of that weight to become happier and prouder of myself. And you see, I was aware Lee never won a battle, yet as a kid I knew that wasn't the point at all, so it didn't discourage me from taking those first steps to changing myself. I knew if I lost weight I wasn't guaranteed to quote unquote win in life. This could be from suddenly being seen as more attractive or simply being a more accepted individual. No, I was doing this for me and me alone. I wanted to be someone that I was proud to be, and for Rock Lee this is the exact same situation for him. While he did think winning a battle was what proved all of his efforts had come to fruition, aka winning in life, this wasn't really the point, and Guy gives him this reminder through this line: it is pointless if you don't believe in yourself. Winning a fight isn't the only thing in Lee's life that can make him a winner, but the amount of time and dedication you spent to improve and change yourself is. Lee hadn't taken a second to look back on how far he's come and what he's accomplished. He's always continued pushing forward with no signs of stopping, and so he always believed he was still at square one, a loser. Yet that wasn't true, as even during the fight when Lee's getting overwhelmed, we see Guy return a look with a proud smile. The outcome of the battle wasn't decided and looked more favourable to Gaara. However, Lee was always going to be seen as a winner in the eyes of Might Guy, because he knows how truly dedicated Lee was to keeping his resolve to stay on the rocky pathway that opposed him. The amount of hard work Lee had pushed through to get to this stage is extraordinary and deemed as impossible by many others, and that accomplishment alone is commendable, which is why this is the moment where we fully recognize the genius of hard work title Lee has achieved to become a splendid ninja. And while right now the situation was definitely dire, the next section of the story revolved around Lee was the moment to see if his way of thinking would continue to remain strong, even when entering the most demoralizing and stressful part of his life up to this moment. After all, as Might Might Guy says, the lotus of the leaf always blooms twice. Rock Lee was now at rock bottom. Not only was his body severely damaged, but he failed to win the fight against Gaara, and for him, that meant everything. Which is why he still refuses to give up and continues to try to get in any amount of training possible, to reach the level of those he wishes to defeat to prove his worth in the Shinobi world. As the story continues, Tsunade at last enters the picture, being the hope for everyone that her medical expertise would be enough to help Lee recover, except it isn't. It still wasn't enough. And to make matters worse, Rock Lee hears the same old repeated line that he despised the most and has tried to run away from. But now with his body in shambles, he was stuck in place with no choice but to let this dreaded phrase eventually catch up to him. You're not cut out to be a shinobi. Rock Lee has been dragged back to square one. But why? Why does all of this have to happen to Lee? Such a harsh reality continues to nail into him with no signs of stopping, especially after hearing from Tsunade that if he does decide to get surgery in hope of making a full recovery, the chances of him surviving is 50-50. Rock Lee's future is no more. Kishimoto delivering a brilliant panel putting on display how broken Lee has truly become, now not only physically but mentally too, taking deep fast heavy breaths as he looks like he's on the verge of exploding because this is no longer a situation where he can keep these thoughts held down, but instead it's all risen to the surface to fully take over. And what does Lee do next? He walks away. This panel is simple but gets the message across perfectly of what atmosphere Kishimoto is attempting to create. It's completely silent, lonely, and somber. All Lee can do right now is be alone with his thoughts. Yet there's no text bubbles whatsoever because after all, what's there to think about when clearly there is no end to his grief? This hallway could even be represented as just that. We don't see an end to it from how long and stretched out it is, just like Lee's suffering. Skipping forward in time a bit, Lee is seen sitting alone in the same place where he first proclaimed his dream to the world, reminiscing on the past of how Might Guy was really the only one who gave him that boost to continue and not stay defeated. Whenever Lee was doubtful or at his lowest, Guy was always that person to guide him onto the right path. After all, we've got to remember, Lee is still a kid who has been shouldering a heavy burden that someone of his age couldn't possibly tackle alone, which is why it's all the more special and heartfelt when Might Guy appears once again when Lee needed him the most. Lee then begins to speak to Guy about how key he was for creating goals for himself to keep him motivated, from making rivals to working hard, and the most crucial piece of advice of all, the importance of believing in oneself. But this time, Rock Lee believed he was done for good, as working hard wasn't possible in the predicament he was in right now. It was entirely out of his hands. So what was there for him to do? What purpose was there for him? These are the exact words he says to Guy, frantically begging him for an answer that Lee believes doesn't exist, and having Guy reply with such an answer would set the nail in the coffin for his dreams once and for all. Kishimoto has framed this event to be comparable to Lee's first breakdown, as Guy was the one who pulled him out from the depths of despair, and now for this situation, Lee is begging for the same thing to happen once more. Might Guy is his light after all, who has guided him down the correct path up to this point. So naturally, Guy's words would be the most important thing for him to hear at this very moment. If you want to be freed from this suffering, you must have resolve. Even through all of this, Guy's mindset hasn't been altered in the slightest. He knows Lee's dream of being a strong shinobi means the world to him. Hell, when Lee started to walk down this path for the first time, he was already aware he was putting his life on the line, because that's how important his ninja way is. And so what Guy is saying is that in reality, the situation hasn't changed at all. If being a shinobi is something Lee still wants, then he should continue with that same headstrong attitude of making it become a reality by putting his life on the line, which is exactly why Guy tells Lee to get the surgery. Because honestly, Lee's life will remain empty and unfulfilled if he doesn't take this risk. So even if there is a small chance that he can go back to the genius of hard work lifestyle, he might as well take that opportunity no matter what. But first and most importantly, he must have that resolve, just like he needed to get past his insecurities from his very first breakdown. You can't only have resolve for a situation you know is guaranteed to be a success. You must carry that same mentality into everything, even when it comes to the most dire of situations, because that's exactly what makes you grow stronger and more confident in yourself. This is an important aspect of Lee's character we've been following throughout the series, as his fight against the Sound Ninja and Gaara was never a battle where he was guaranteed to win just because he worked hard. That's not the reason for Rock Lee's existence that Kishimoto wanted, because if it hadn't been clear enough, Lee was not written to be judged a victor purely from winning a match, but instead he was viewed as a winner due to him bouncing back stronger than ever no matter the difficulties that faced him. Might Guy is written in similar fashion, but with a few different elements that I'll save for another video. Yet he's still the one who gives Lee this teaching about how bouncing back is what makes one stronger. This is shown through his own self-rule, where if Guy loses a task he sets for himself, he then creates a self-rule that he must overcome before leaping back into action, essentially being his bounce back process. As it happens, he also says that if there is a chance you lose again when attempting to tackle this obstacle even after working hard, at the end of the day you still put in the work that not only made you that one bit stronger, but most importantly, it was also a testament to your resolve. That is what makes a splendid ninja for both Rock Lee and Might Guy. And as I said before, the situation is no different. To show his resolve for carrying on the life of a splendid ninja, Lee must get this surgery no matter what. Even if he did die from it, that resolve to never quit is something no one could take from him, which is why it's all the more brilliant watching him at last make a grand return in the Sasuke retrieval arc when help was needed the most. If Lee had decided to give up on his aspirations of being a splendid ninja, then Kimimari's surprise attack would have been the end for Naruto, or would have at least damaged him severely unless Lee hadn't intervened. This interference also greatly saved time for Naruto to catch up to Sasuke, which he most definitely wouldn't have with how persistent Kimimaro was at keeping him at bay. Rock Lee hasn't even begun the fight, yet this moment already proved that not giving up and having a strong enough resolve to bounce back was truly worth it. Lee had once again proved that he was a splendid ninja without even having won a fight, because after all, just because you worked hard doesn't mean you're guaranteed to win, especially against those who are born gifted. The fact that he held on to his ninja way and pushed through is victory in itself. Lee is inspirational, not only for the characters in the series like Naruto and Sasuke to work hard, but especially for myself and others who have followed his journey. And so I find it really unfortunate how his character has been deemed as a complete failure purely through misconceptions that have only spread and grew as time has gone on. Rock Lee's character serves as a lesson that victory is not always guaranteed, and it's a harsh reality to face. But as long as you have the perseverance to get back up no matter how many times you've been pushed to the ground, you not only show how strong of an unbreakable will you have, but as well as how you don't ever truly fail because of how you refuse to stay down and let the fate of your weaknesses control you. It's something you'll decide for yourself. And while we're on the topic of victory, if it hasn't been clear enough up to now, Lee's character has never been about demonstrating how hard work beats talent. Not only is that a misguided path that Lee fell into himself due to believing it was the only way to show he was a splendid ninja, but it's also been clearly shown through Lee's losses. If anything, Rock Lee is a wake-up call to those who just naturally rely on their gifted genes without putting in any work into their overall craft. This is a lesson that Sasuke especially learns from, as it only takes him a month to match the same speed as Lee due to his intensive training with Kakashi during the Chunin exams in preparation for his match against Gaara, because he knew he couldn't rely on just his Uchiha blood alone. The talented can also work hard to reach new heights, making Lee's misguided pursuit to beat those such as Sasuke even more out of reach. However, while Lee doesn't beat talent, I'd argue he outshined it most definitely. The perfect example being his fight against Gaara, as it's still regarded as not only the best fight in that arc, but as well as one of the best in the entire series. The amount of reaction shots we get during this battle also proves this, which I touched upon before. This fight is also the reason why Sasuke was able to improve upon his taijutsu thanks to Kakashi watching a brawl with his Sharingan, proving once again that Lee's existence was crucial for those who wish to grow strong. Because seeing someone who has gotten to this position through hard work alone is incredible and creates an opportunity to learn from such eye-opening experiences. Rock Lee is a character that not only represents our biggest aspirations, but also our biggest insecurities of the cruel reality of our shortcomings, and for that simple reason, it's why his his character feels so down to earth and moving. We all have our weak points, but that shouldn't be the deciding factor to call it quits, because if you work hard, you'll most surely find a hidden strength. This is the resolve to never give up. And for me, this was the true purpose of Rock Lee that helped him become a truly splendid ninja. So, that's a wrap for this video. Rock Lee is a character who means an awful lot to me due to the massive impact he had on my life. I know that probably sounds cringy, but it's honestly true. And because he benefited my life for the better, I have no issues talking about this since it was a positive change. And so I wanted to give his character some justice due to how almost controversial he's become with his existence in the series. While it is unfortunately doesn't really do anything in Shippuden, as I'm sure Kishimoto could have made him be more involved, his character arc was without a doubt completed with his resolve to get the surgery and work alongside the boy who originally crippled him to take down Kimimaru. It's a sweet full circle moment of both characters jumping back into the scene to help someone they care for after going through a pretty significant life-changing moment of development, at last being at peace with their resolve of the type of person they would like to be represented as. Yet as I mentioned, it's still a shame he doesn't pop up as frequently we would have liked after the time skip, but overall he's still a great character to discuss, as you can tell from this video. And so with that being said, if you did enjoy anything that I talked about, then please give the video a like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you can get notified when I drop my next video. It's for free and it lets me know you're enjoying my content, so if you're at least a slight bit interested, you might as well stick along for the ride. As well, do follow me over on my Twitter account at MikeyUB. It's the place where I'm most active, so if you want to message me over there, then feel free. And also, please do comment below if there's anything you'd like to talk about, whether it's to do with Rock Lee or anything anime and manga related in general. Whatever the discussion is, I'll make sure to check it out. And with this, thank you all so much for watching the video to the very end. Hope you all have a great day and bless.